Welcome to For the Love of Books, a podcast by North Lanarkshire Libraries. Hi everyone, welcome back to the North Lanarkshire Libraries podcast For the Love of Books. My name is Chris Wilson, the E-Services Librarian, and it's very, very close to Book Week Scotland, which I'm super excited about, and we have got a fantastic lineup of events for you guys. So to kind of go through it and look at it in a bit more detail, I thought I would get one of our other librarians on the podcast today to kind of talk through it with me and kind of see what we've got coming up, which you guys can book onto for free and come along to and see some fantastic authors in a library near you. So without further ado, I have got Thomas from Coatbridge Library to come along and talk to me about the fantastic lineup. Thomas has been involved in part of the process of kind of putting together some of the event, and he will tell you all about his excitement about getting some of the kind of yeses back from some of the authors about that as well, which is always a fun thing for us to be doing as a team. And here he is to tell us all about some of the lineup. Hi Thomas, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. It's been a wee while since I've had you on, and it's getting to that exciting time of year for libraries and the book world in Scotland in general. When Book Week Scotland arrives, which is fantastic, it's quite an extra special week, isn't it, for when we can all kind of start to celebrate books and authors just that little bit more than we always normally do in libraries.
Aye, no, Chris, it's thanks for having me on. And Book Week Scotland is a highlight, not just for libraries, but for readers, writers, for everybody who's involved in or interested in literature in Scotland. And it's certainly something that I look forward to immensely, both as a librarian and just as an ordinary punter. And we've got loads of things going on that we're going to get the chance to talk about that even if I didn't work for North Lanarkshire Libraries, I would be going along to see. So yeah, no, it's a brilliant time of year. And the theme this year, I think, is hope, which feels like, something we could all do with a wee bit more of, certainly when it's coming into the darker nights as it is right now. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Book Week Scotland this year.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic week, I think, and I always feel it's a time like this with libraries that we get a chance to kind of give a little bit more added kind of value to our library members, with kind of adding a little bit of extra special things with some like really top class events that we can put on and stuff like that, and it's all for free, which is fantastic. What do you think is it that makes it so great for the customers to kind of come and experience?
Well, I think for me personally, being able to going to an author event and actually meeting the people whose books you've been reading is a huge thing. And obviously, I used to work in the Borders myself before I came to Coatbridge to work there. Yeah. And it's a lot harder to get authors down to the Borders. It's a lot harder to get authors to Shetland or Orkney. So we're really privileged in a lot of ways here, and we're really privileged to be so close to where everything's at. And to have the standard and quality of authors that we get here in North Lanarkshire, not just this year, but in previous years, I think that's something that it really brings home to you how special reading and writing is. And it really brings home to you how lucky we are to come from a part of the country and a part of the world, actually, because Scotland punches well above its weight in literature terms, a part of the world and a part of the country that really values literature and has produced so much fantastic literature. And and for me personally, I just love meeting authors, and I love hearing authors reading their own work, and I love connecting with authors.
Yeah, I think author events, I think, are one of the great things about the kind of library service, because, like you say, it's just that kind of that every one of them have got a different experience. They've got a different route to getting their book out there to people. And you sometimes kind of get a little bit after you've read the book, after you kind of meet the author and hear their side of why they wrote the book and stuff like that. It sometimes gives you a little bit of a different kind of experience of the book itself a little bit too. And I think that's one of the great things about kind of getting the chance to kind of meet authors and stuff like that as well.
Aye, totally.
Now let's get on to the good stuff. Our lineup for this year. I think you had a little bit of a hand in getting some of the authors for this year, which is why I thought it'd be good to get you along to kind of give us a little bit of insight to some of them. Something that I really enjoyed doing was getting kind of putting together author events, stuff like that, getting in contact with authors, trying to get them stuff. Did you enjoy that side of the job, trying to kind of put together the events for the authors and stuff like that, and kind of arranging them to come along to the libraries?
Totally. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I'm glad to hear you say that you enjoy it because I actually really do enjoy it. I really do enjoy connecting directly with authors and finding out who's willing to come to North Lanarkshire. And actually, in a lot of ways, you kind of buzz off the excitement when you get in touch with an author and they're really, for whatever reason, particular reason, they're really keen to come to Coatbridge or Motherwell or Airdrie or Cumbernauld. They're really, I know, no, I just mean, sometimes they'll have a
Yeah,
local connection with the place. Sometimes their book is some way related to something that's happened here or something that's here. But it's lovely to see authors who are really keen to come here and really keen to connect with our audiences here and reaching out to those authors and getting back the email that says, yeah, there's nothing better than and because the authors who I've arranged for this year are all authors that I'm a huge fan of. And
yeah.
there's, to reach out to those folk and say, is there any chance that you might come to, say, Coatbridge on a wet Tuesday night? And them saying, yeah, it's such a buzz.
Yeah, I know. Like you say, it's when that email comes back in, we sometimes kind of send out lots of invites to authors, and obviously at this time of year, especially during Book Scotland, and authors are getting lots of invites from everywhere, and not everybody can say yes, and they for various reasons, and so you're not always expecting a yes back.
Mhm.
And when that comes back and says yes, it's like, wow, I've managed to get kind of hook somebody in, which is fantastic. And especially if it is something that you kind of have a kind of little kind of thing about, kind of you're a fan of or whatever, yourself and stuff. It does kind of make it kind of a bit extra special too, whenever you get that chance to kind of put together the event for the public to come along to, which is great. Now, I thought let's just run through the events that we do have as it progresses. I think in this case, and in case we haven't mentioned it already, it does Book Week Scotland starts this year on Monday, the 18th of November. So it is very, very soon. And the first author event that we've got is one that will definitely excite a lot of fellow football fans like you and me, Thomas. It's going to be Pat Nevin, which is a Scottish football legend, got a big connection with Motherwell Football Club, and he's going to be coming along to Motherwell Library on Monday, the 18th of November at 7 o'clock. He's bound to have lots of really interesting stories, I think. He's had a very kind of varied career, kind of played for some great teams. I think he's going to have some fantastic stories to tell, and it's a really good host that we've got for that event as well, isn't it?
Oh, aye, aye. Well, like you said, Chris, it's kind of two for the price of one with that event because not only have you got Pat Nevin, who is a wonderful raconteur, really great storyteller, very funny guy, and his books are superb. I've been reading his book since way back. One of the first books that he wrote was called In Mahid's Son. And it was while he was still playing, actually, wrote a book in conjunction with a psychologist, and it was about what it's like to be a professional footballer. And
All
obviously,
right.
Pat Nevin is one of the folk that really thinks about the game and really thinks about what it's like in a way that maybe not all footballers historically have done. So
Yeah.
he's brilliant at really bringing home to you what it's like to be a professional footballer, what the life of a professional footballer is like. And I've got no doubt whatsoever he's going to be fantastic at Motherwell on the 18th. But as well as Pat Nevin, we've got Daniel Gray, who's going to be chairing that event. He's going to be
Yeah.
talking to Pat Nevin about his career. And Daniel Gray, for me, is like one of the best football writers we have in this country right now or ever. I don't know if you've read any of his books, but he's written loads of books about football, Scottish football in particularly. He writes about history, but he's written particularly books about the delights, the hidden joys of football. And a lot of them
Yeah.
are things that are gone now. Things like, when people used to queue round the windows at Rumbelows to see the full-time results come in on the telly at 3 p.m. or old newspaper things, or one of the things actually that me and you will particularly appreciate is bald footballers, how that's not a thing anymore. So Daniel
Sure.
is absolutely
I,
brilliant. He's also the editor in Nutmeg, a
I've
football
never
magazine.
I've never thought about that, but there is a lack of bald footballers these days.
Yeah,
That needs to come back, I think.
aye, aye. I don't know why, but Daniel's really good at spotting these things that you didn't realise had disappeared for the game, even things like that. So the conversation between Daniel and Pat is going to be absolutely superb, really good stuff, and I'm personally going to be going to that one. I don't work at Motherwell and I don't work at all that day actually, but I'm going because I want to hear the patter for them too.
Yeah, and I think also with it being a Motherwell library and with his connection to the football team there as well, I think that's meant to kind of there's going to be fans there that hopefully will kind of want to come along to that and hear a little bit about his career and obviously his books as well. So that's going to be a great event for anyone to come along to. The next one I thought we kind of mention is on Tuesday, the 19th of November at 2 p.m. and it's a well-known Scottish writer, Billy Kay, that's coming along to take part in a bit of a crossover event between Bookie Scotland and the new Tricks events that happen in Airdrie Library. I think it's quite fully booked already, which is not really too much of a surprise because he is very kind of a well-known, and also the kind of new Tricks events that Airdrie do very well. Anyway, he's going to be very entertaining, I think, and there's going to be lots of kind of Scots language and stuff like that on display with him, isn't it? Which is something that's quite kind of important to you.
Aye. No, Billy's, I think, as close as we've got to a national treasure in this country. You know, he's just he's an absolute joy, both as a writer and as a human being and as a speaker. And we had him at Coatbridge a couple of years ago, and he had people spellbound. And his latest book is Born in Kyle, which is about his own childhood and growing up in Ayrshire, which is primarily where he grew up. And it's about the Scots language, and it's in the Scots language, and it's about the idioms and the language that was used in Ayrshire at that time. But it's a bit more than that. It's about a kind of a world and a way of life that's disappeared or is gradually disappearing.
Yeah.
And it's a way of life that obviously was before my time and before yours, Chris, and that in a way makes it all the more interesting to me.
Yeah.
For people who, and I imagine a lot of the people at New Tricks and a lot of the people who are listening are about the same age as Billy Kay, it'll be something that's even more than just interesting. It'll be a real connection to something that really matters to them. So Billy is such a good storyteller, got a real eye for detail. The book is fantastic, and the only thing I can imagine better than the book is hearing Billy talk about and read for the book.
Yeah. So, and that, like we were saying earlier on, it's going to add kind of so much to it, and just kind of like say that anyone who's at that event who maybe can connect a bit to what he's talking about and stuff like that is going to kind of have a whole kind of reminiscence feel to it as well as kind of just enjoying kind of hearing about Billy's upbringing himself, which is going to be very interesting on its own. And the next event we've got that's coming out is also on Tuesday the 19th, but it's going to be an evening one at 7 p.m. in Wishaw Library this time. And it's a Scottish crime writer called T.F. Muir. He's originally from Glasgow, I believe, and he writes a series called the D.I. Gilchrist series, and it's set in the very picturesque St Andrews, which is probably not the most likely place you would think of setting a kind of crime series. It's one of my favourite places. I used to kind of holiday there as a child, and the idea of a whole bunch of crime things happening there just kind of baffles my brain. But I guess it's not out of the realms of possibility. And he has made it work for him. He's now on to his 13th book in that series, and T.F. Muir is really going to make it's going to kind of be a kind of really interesting one to kind of hear from, just because it's a bit different from having that kind of whole kind of Glasgow or Edinburgh crime series that we kind of probably most people kind of expect from a kind of Scottish crime writer.
Aye. Well, it's when I first heard about T.F. Muir and his St Andrews based books, I just assumed it was going to be one of these cosy crime books that you hear about, and that you know, like Richard Osman. You think, okay, St Andrews is quite a nice wee place. It's going to be about a few wee grannies solving a murder in a church fete, and it's not that at all. It's this very noirish T.F. Muir's writing. We've got to have a crime event. We've got to have a crime event at every Book Week Scotland ever, and because Scotland is such a rich source of crime fiction, people come from all over the country to participate in our crime festivals and such like. And obviously, you ask anybody in the country and anybody in the world rather to name a crime writer, and they're going to say Ian Rankin or Val McDermid in their top 2 or 3. So T.F. Muir, and I know T.F. Muir is very well thought of, very highly thought of by his fellow crime writers, and folk like Louise Welsh and Cara Ramsey who've praised him to the skies. So and to do 13 books set in St Andrews. I read the other day something that he was saying about how he spends a lot of time in the bars and restaurants of St Andrews doing research. I imagine he does a wee bit more than research in the bars and restaurants of St Andrews, but
possibly. We actually did have TFMUR come to Motherwell Library a long time ago now. I can't remember when it was. I think it was whenever we used to do the Encounters Festival, which is before your time with us, Thomas. And he was a really interesting guy. He was a really good speaker and stuff like that. So it is going to be a really, really good event for anyone that comes along to it. And especially any crime fans that are out there who are wanting to kind of maybe find something a little bit different from the kind of, like I say, the kind of the grittiness of Glasgow. And things like that, it's a little bit of a different scene, and anyone who's been and seen St Andrews will kind of maybe want to kind of discover how you can make that the dark place for a kind of crime series. So definitely they should get themselves along to see TFMUR at Wishaw Library on the 19th. Next up is an event I'm going to be hosting one online, which I'm quite excited about. It's with a local author, Lee Adam, who we actually had on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. He was telling us all about his book then as well. It's a chance to it's going to be on Wednesday, the 20th of November at 1 p.m. And he'll be telling us all about his debut novel, Beast and Burden, which if you don't know too much about, you can listen back to the podcast that we did, and he'll tell you a little bit more about it, and then you can come and hear him talk about it on our event. What I like about this is it really opens it up a bit to being able to kind of give the opportunity of people who maybe not be able to come along to a library to kind of come to an event, which is really, really good. And it also gives us the added benefit of being able to support a local author and kind of get his name out there a little bit as well, which I think is another important part of Book Week Scotland, is being able to kind of highlight that not every author is necessarily a kind of headline act. There is kind of local authors who need that kind of little bit of support and kind of get their name out there as well, which I think is really, really good.
Oh, totally. Well, I mean, Book Week Scotland is all about accessibility first and foremost, and obviously one of the offspins of the pandemic was that things started to go online, and we found that actually a lot of things could stay online, or at least that being able to provide events like this online was a good thing in conjunction with providing in-person events. So if you can't make it to another events, if you're on holiday even, in another country, you can still tune in and hear our online event with Lee Adam. And you're totally right about local authors, especially here in North Lanarkshire, because we've got a really rich history of authors for Liz Lockhead and Damien, even just for living authors like Liz Lockhead and Damien Barr and Graham Armstrong, Len Penny, Des Dillon, Brian Conahan. And all these authors started off with a first book, just like Lee Adams starting off with. And all these authors started off with people who were supporting them. And that's how they got to where they are. And I think it's really vital that we play our part in doing the same thing for new and emerging authors in the area.
Yeah, definitely. And it was very interesting when we did the podcast. I think it's going to be a really, really good event. And I think we might possibly even record it as well. So even if you can't make it along at the time it's going to be a live event, we'll probably record it and possibly put it on YouTube as well, and later on as well, to kind of give anyone the chance to kind of see it there too, which again just adds that accessibility thing that you've kind of mentioned there, and widens the scope for people to be able to kind of access it and see it and stuff like that too. After that, we're moving on to your library, Thomas. We have got an event there on the Thursday the 21st at 6:30, so it's slightly earlier than our usual kind of evening events. 6:30 starts, and it's Peter Ross who is going to be the author then. He's probably best known for his kind of history and travel writing. And what are you expecting for anyone to find out about if they come along to that event with Peter?
Well, Peter Ross, I think, is one of the finest non-fiction writers in the country right now. And I'm so delighted to have Peter Ross coming to Coatbridge. And in fact, when we're talking about, getting the email that says yes for folk, this is something that's been kind of in the offing for a couple of years, because I've been asking Peter Ross every year, basically, at every time we've got an event, do you fancy it? Do you fancy it? And he's always had, because his books, Steeplechasing, The Tomb with a View, have been doing so well and won so many awards and so many plaudits. He's been everywhere in the country. A lot of Scottish writers will only do Scottish festivals or Scottish events. He's been down south, left, right, and centre. So to finally get him to Coatbridge is absolutely amazing. It's such a great opportunity to have one of the best writers in the country here. And he's going to talk about steeplechasing, A Tomb with a View, both of which are about his travels around the country, looking at churches, old churches that are, falling into disrepair sometimes, that are being forgotten. And the same with graveyards being things that people don't really like to think about or talk about, and certainly no read about or write about, but that are incredibly vital to our sense of self and our sense of community. And Peter he's just got such a great eye for detail, is the thing that I really admire about Peter. He brings these places to life, these places that you wouldn't think. You think, well, what's the difference between one church and another? What's the difference between one graveyard and another? Well, Peter Ross sees the difference between one churchyard and another. He brings it home to you. And quite apart from that, I'm going to be honest and say that Peter Ross is somebody I've admired for a long time, who's doing his journalism, and he's interviewed some of the most interesting people that have been in the UK public eye over the years. And there's one person in particular, Rick Mail, who he interviewed. And if you ever get a chance to read his interview with Rick Mail, it's brilliant, because Rick Mail is trying to be Rick Mail. He's trying to be his persona, and Peter Ross is trying to pin him down to actually being a human being, if you see what I mean. And I definitely want to hear more from him about that, about the experience of interviewing Rick Mail in full Rick Mail mode, So I'm absolutely delighted that we're having Peter Ross at Coatbridge Library finally. Long overdue, and I totally urge anybody, fan of his books or no, to come along on the 21st of November and hear from the man himself.
Fantastic. It's nice. It's good to hear that you finally got your man as well. You're persistent enough with your emails over the years to finally get him along, which is fantastic. The final event that I wanted to for us to touch on is a book launch. It's at Cumbernauld Library for the Recollective Artists Group up there, and it's called Concrete Dreams. Cumbernauld is just one of those iconic Scottish places, isn't it? And people have got different opinions about it, whether they like it or not, kind of thing. And this week's no doubt going to explore a lot about that, and explore it kind of in a much more detail and in an interesting way, I think. Cumbernauld kind of just that kind of very iconic place, isn't it? There's everyone's kind of from the kind of films that's been filmed there over the years, and all that sort of stuff. It's an interesting one, I think, for people to kind of look at this kind of social history of it, I think.
Aye, well, I think the thing that's really interesting about this is how it highlights the way that literature brings places to life, and literature embeds places in your consciousness. And I remember somebody saying about Alistair Gray's book Lanark, that it was the place that made it possible to imagine being in Glasgow, because he had brought Glasgow to life in a way that the rest of us who've never been to New York can imagine being in New York because of film and literature set there. Yeah. And so for Cumbernauld, somewhere that has got a kind of interesting history, it's very different from the rest of Scotland, and very different, well, most of the rest of Scotland anyway, to have a book of stories that are set in and around Cumbernauld by Cumbernauld-based writers, or writers with Cumbernauld connections. I think that's the sort of thing that really brings a place to life, and it makes it makes it occupiable in your mind. So I haven't read Concrete Dreams yet, but I'm really looking forward to reading it and hearing more about it.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting. I think there's always a lot of people who have got a lot of interesting things about Cumbernauld as well. So I think there's definitely going to be a lot of interest in that event, and it's going to be quite a large crowd on it. I haven't got the actual date on it on my screen for. I think it's a Saturday, and it's going to be at 5 o'clock, I believe. And it's going to be a really interesting event there for anyone to come along. So thanks for joining me, Thomas, to kind of go through our main events. It's really, really interesting. But there's also going to be loads of regular events as well on that week and stuff like that. And if any of our listeners do want to come along to the event, remember you can book a free place for them using our online catalogue, which you'll find at librariesnl.spidus.co.uk. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Thomas, a little bit. If you were to say this one is the one that's not to be missed out of our lineup, which event are you going to pick?
I'm not sure if I could. I'm not sure if I could. What I will say, like the Billy Kay event will be brilliant, but I know it's almost totally fully booked. So that's something to keep an eye out for the future, I suppose, if you haven't already booked your ticket. Daniel Gray and Pat Nevin will be brilliant. TF Muir will be absolutely superb. I've no doubt about that, as will Lee Adam, as will the event at Cumbernauld. But because in my personal input to getting Peter Ross here, and because I know he's not always an easy guy to get somewhere, you might get another chance to see some of the other folk again. Peter Ross maybe not so much. So I have to be honest and say Peter Ross is the event that if I was just an average punter, that's the one I'd be booking my ticket for right now.
Right, okay. I'll let you pick your own library as the not to be missed one. That's fine. That's okay. No, thank you very much, Thomas, for coming and joining me, and we'll
No
run through.
bother.
Book Week Scotland is going to be a fantastic weekend. There has been such a great set of events set up by the libraries team, and hopefully all the library members are going to really, really enjoy it. So there you go, guys. We have got a fantastic lineup of events for Book Week Scotland, and we really, really hope that you guys get involved in them. But there's something for everyone in the lineup, and there's going to be a great set of events for everyone to come and see. If you're a football fan, definitely get yourself along to the Pat Nevin event. It's going to be brilliant. There's also the kind of the crime ones with kind of TF Muir or Lee Adam, which will be really, really exciting for anyone to come along to. And also kind of the more kind of history or non-fiction type events with Billy Kay and Peter Ross, and also the kind of Concrete Dreams one, which is going to be in Cumbernauld as well. So many great events for you guys to come along to across the whole of the week, and they are not to be missed. So do get online, book a free place, and or ask in the library next time you're in, and they can book a place for you as well while you're in. You can, if you want to do it yourself online, you can go to librariesnl.spidus.co.uk, and you'll find all the links on there to kind of book this places. There's banners on there about Book Week Scotland and stuff like that. You can't miss it, and you'll be able to find the events to kind of book on and get yourself signed up to come along, and we hope to see you there. That's all I've got time for now, guys. I hope you enjoy any of the events that you do come along to, and you have a fantastic Book Week Scotland when it comes. But for now, that's all for me. Bye-bye, guys.